If you want to use Pinterest to drive free organic traffic to your site, then you have to be consistent. Today, I'm going over the third pillar that makes up your Pinterest marketing strategy, and that pillar is consistency. If you didn't see the first two videos where I covered keywords and creating scroll stopping pins, be sure to go back and watch those videos and also subscribe so you also get the fourth video and pillar as well. So consistency, like anything in business or life, if you want to see growth, you have to be consistent. So when I'm talking to clients, when I'm educating my students, I always give a baseline for consistency. So on Pinterest, I recommend pinning anywhere from 3 to 5 times a day. Now, I have noticed that people love to become obsessed with that specific number, and they almost feel like there's a magic number where if they pin X amount of times per day, then they are going to see X amount of growth. And it doesn't always work that way. I always preach quality over quantity, but you do have to have this fine balance where you're creating enough content and making sure that it is fresh content so that Pinterest understands who you are, what you're creating, and who to show that content to. And if you aren't consistent, then that is not going to help your overall growth because that's hindering Pinterest's ability to index your content and once again, show that content to who is actively searching for it. So you not only need to be pinning daily, but like I mentioned, multiple times a day. You also want to make sure that you are being consistent so that you don't burn yourself out. So think about, can I pin 10 times a day? Do I have enough content that I can pin 10 times a day? Or is it more feasible for me to pin 3 times a day? So for myself, like I mentioned, I pin anywhere from 3 to 5 times a day. That is a combination of standard pins, video pins, and idea pins. Typically, I'm pinning the most of my standard pins. So those are your static pins, and those are the ones that people are most used to on the platform. Now, the second type of pin that I'm also creating on a weekly basis are video pins. Now, I'm usually only creating 2 to 4 video pins on a weekly basis. And then that third pin format, that would be the idea pins. And I'm usually creating at least 1 to 2 idea pins a day. Now, people used to think that if you were pinning live, that would help increase the reach of your pins. I don't find that it helps that reach whatsoever, or the distribution of my pins. So if you want to be consistent on the platform, I think the key to that is using a scheduler. I think it's the most streamlined way to make sure that you are pinning multiple times a day and also making sure that you are sharing high quality content as well. Because what you can do, I sit down, you could do this on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, but you sit down and create and batch multiple pins. And then what I do is I go to my preferred scheduler, which is Tailwind. I am a Tailwind affiliate, but I only share and promote resources that I know and use myself. When you are thinking about, pro tip, different types of schedulers that you might use for Pinterest, just be sure that you are using a scheduler that is approved by Pinterest. So now back to Tailwind. When I am batching that content, I go into Tailwind, I upload all of my pins, and then I optimize the titles, descriptions, and then I go ahead and I schedule them out. Now, Pinterest does have a scheduler within the platform, so you can schedule content natively, but you don't have some of the same capabilities that you do over in Tailwind. So once again, this is a bit more tactical, but in Tailwind, you can play around with intervals. So how far apart you're spacing your pins. So if I have my first pin that's going over 8 ways to monetize Pinterest, I might want to schedule that one pin to at least 3 highly relevant boards. So in Tailwind, what I can do is I can take that one pin, and on Monday, I can schedule it to my first board. And then let's say 7 days later, I schedule it to the second most highly relevant board. And then another week after that, I'm scheduling to the third most highly relevant board. So it's okay to pin that one pin to more than one board, as long as it is, like I mentioned, highly relevant. But did you see there how I mentioned that I was spreading it out? You want to think about slowly dripping your content out on Pinterest so that if you have that one pin, you're not pinning it to all 3 of those same boards the same day. But because it creates not a great user experience, and that's also a way that Pinterest might ding you or maybe even flag your account for spam. So you want to make sure that you are really slowly dripping out your content in a way that is going to be a great user experience for the pinner. So when I'm using Tailwind, that allows me very seamlessly to pin multiple times a day, and it also makes it realistic, because to think about live pinning or manually pinning 3 to 5 times a day, that gets a little insane. Now with my idea pins, because you cannot schedule out idea pins, currently what I am doing is I will create my idea pins, save them in my drafts, make sure they are all edited and queued up, ready to go. And then I go into the Pinterest app, and one time a day, I hit publish on that idea pin that is already edited and ready to be published. So that really streamlines that process as well. And you might be thinking, Emily, but I don't want to create idea pins if I can't schedule them out. I definitely want to make sure that it's clear that idea pins, they are crucial. So even though you do have a little bit more work involved as far as saving them in the drafts and then having to go hit publish once a day, that is how I have really grown my account. So I want to encourage you to, even if it's not daily, at least pin multiple idea pins a week. So even if you can't do it every single day, anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. So 3 different days you're publishing idea pins, or maybe 5 different days you're publishing those idea pins. As you see here though, the theme is consistency. People used to think that using a scheduler was maybe impacting their traffic or their growth, but what I find is a lot of times people just have a negative mindset and they want to point fingers or blame different platforms or tools as to why they aren't seeing the Pinterest growth that they want to. These tools that we have at our disposal, they're just doing what we're telling them to do. They're putting out the inputs we are giving them. So it's a little bit of tough love here, but if you have followed me or subscribed to me for long, then you know that I like to be totally transparent and honest with my audience. And like I said, tough love here. But if you're putting garbage out, guess what Tailwind is going to put out? Garbage. So like I say, garbage in, garbage out. When you are creating those pins and you are uploading them into Tailwind, you can't be lazy or slack off. You still need to have your optimized pin titles, your optimized pin descriptions. Like I mentioned, you want to use intervals. You don't just want to fill up your queue and then walk away. So whatever you are putting into Tailwind, that's what it's going to put out. Or maybe you're using a different platform. Same methodology though. If you're not putting in really great high quality content, it's not the scheduler's fault that you're not optimizing your content. So you just still have to be strategic with it and not get lazy just because you're using a scheduler. And I find that sometimes tools make us want to be lazy. We're like, I just want to get this, schedule filled out. Try not to go down that slippery slope. Make sure you are sharing really great high quality content. And if you can only pin 3 times a day and keep up with that level of quality, then only pin 3 times a day. I do think you are still going to see growth. Now, one last piece I want to cover as far as the consistency. You might be thinking, well, Emily, I have tons and tons of content. I want to pin 10 times a day. It is okay to pin more times a day if you have a lot of content, but you just have to think about some of the Pinterest best practices, which is 1, you want to make sure that you are creating fresh content. So new pin designs that you're sharing, new links to the platform, still keeping that great user experience. 2, that, like I mentioned before, you're optimizing your pin titles, your pin descriptions. So all of those pieces, once you start doing a larger volume, it can be easy to fall into more lazy practices. So just be cognizant of that. But if you have a ton of content, like you have hundreds of blog posts and you want to be, pinning and creating more pins, that is totally fine. You do what is best for you, but everybody's content and their business and their niche is different. What I want you to take away though, the consistency is not optional. You can't pin 1 month and be on it, and then the next month have an empty queue pin sporadically here and there and expect to see growth on Pinterest. You have to be pinning every single day and stick with it. I'm going to tell you now, in the beginning, if you're just getting started, it's hard. You might not see growth for 6 to 12 months, but just when you're about ready to give up, you might have a breakthrough. Honestly, for my own account, I decided it was time to finally start practicing what I preached, because I used to just focus on my client accounts. It took me a full year before I started finally seeing traction with my own account. It took that consistency and showing up every single day on Pinterest before I started seeing growth. And guess what? Now it's my #1 traffic driver, and it's also the platform where I have the least amount of followers. So this third pillar is definitely crucial. Be sure to subscribe so you get this fourth pillar in your Pinterest marketing strategy. And go back and watch the other 2 videos if you haven't watched those other 2 pillars over keywords and creating scroll stopping pins. I hope you found this video helpful. Like the video, share in the comments any questions you have or any feedback, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye for now.